Hi guys, and welcome to Artflow channel. In this third video within our free online course about Adobe Illustrator, we're gonna talk about how to create objects, how to change their colors, how to rotate them, scale them, and etc. We have a lot of things to discuss, so without further ado, let's get started. First of all, let's see where we can find a lot of different shapes for our needs. On the left side in Illustrator, you can see your Tools panel. And over here, you might see that you have rectangle shape. If you're gonna click with your left mouse button and hold, you will see additional tools over here. Rectangle, rounded, ellipse, polygon tool, star tool, flare tool. As well as those options, you have a lot of things other than them. For example, here, line segment. Hold left mouse button and you can see that you have line, arc, spiral tool, and etc. And that's not all the shapes. But let's go with the simple one. Let's go with the rectangle tool. I'm just clicking over here, selecting rectangle tool, and please remember this hotkey. It's M on your keyboard. It's gonna allow you to switch between your basic selection tool to your rectangle tool with one button. That's easy, that's convenient, so please remember M on your keyboard, that's rectangle tool. Now, whenever you selected this rectangle tool, you need to understand that you have two main options of creating object. Let me show you option number one. Option number one is clicking with your left mouse button on any part of the screen that is within this main working area. Clicking with left mouse button, and I created a new pop-up window with the settings for width and height. It's gonna allow me to type any size that I want, for example 100 to 100, and click OK. And you're done. You can see that we have rectangle, which is sized 100 pixels by 100 pixels. I received a lot of questions in my online courses about how to create an object with millimeters, for example, not pixels. The same way, click left mouse button and instead of pixels, just hit MM, and here the same. And software will recalculate everything and you will see that you have exact same numbers in pixels. So you have, so 100 millimeters is equal to 283.4 pixels. And the same goes for inches, for pitas, for anything that you want to have, you can type it over here. As well as you can multiply everything. For example, I have 100 by 100, but I know that I want to have width multiplied by 2, for example. I'm just clicking over here, multiply 2, tab on my keyboard, and that's all. Now I have 200 pixels. I can minus something. I can go minus 17, tab on my keyboard, that's all. So if you want to have precise size of your object, now you know how to do that. If you want to have different measurement system, you can do that. That's how it works. But mostly, especially myself, I'm creating them in another way. I'm stretching them. So instead of just clicking with my left mouse button, I'm holding left mouse button. While I'm holding, I can stretch object, I can give it any shape, any size, and whenever I'm ready, I'm just releasing my left mouse button. That's all. Let me change the color from red to something more beautiful. For example, this purple color. Yeah, it's way better. And now, as you can see, we create a rectangle with the following sizes: 457 to 89. That's how it works. Now, let's talk about how to create not a rectangle, but a perfect square, because right now you can see that this is definitely a rectangle, but I want to have a perfect square. So I'm deleting this object, I'm hitting delete on my keyboard, delete, that's all. And if you want to create a perfect square, while you're holding left mouse button over here, you need to hold shift on your keyboard, because while you're holding shift, it's gonna constrain proportions, so now you have the exact same numbers. You have perfect width and height, they are attached to each other, and you have proportion 1:1. That way, you create not a rectangle, but a square. That's how it works. One more. In some situations, you might need to drag not from corner to corner, but you need to drag from center to the outside position. For example, I want to create a rectangle that is gonna be with the center over here. But that's quite complicated for me to understand how to make it center over here. So instead of doing in that way, you need to go in other one. Let me show you. Hover on the place from where you want to start your creating your rectangle. Hover now. You need to hold Alt on your keyboard, and that's gonna allow you to drag from the center to the corners. And as well as holding Alt, you can hold Shift on your keyboard. In that way, you can have constrained proportions, so you can create a square instead of rectangle. And that's all. One more time. Hover the place where I want to start with, Alt and Shift on my keyboard, I'm holding them, and now that's all. If you will release Alt on your keyboard, you will lose this possibility to stretch from the center to the outside. You will stretch from corner to corner. I released my Alt, and as you can see, that's how it works. If I'm gonna release Shift on my keyboard while holding left mouse button, I will lose my proportions, and now it's rectangle. So that's how it works. It works in exact same way with any object, any shape that you will find in Illustrator, and that's how you need to do that. Now, let's talk about something else. Over here, I created a perfect square. As you can see, we have a lot of control points, a lot of different icons around this object, and let's go and discuss what is object, how it is created, how you can adjust it, how you can rotate, scale, change color, and etc. Let's start with the basic one. To understand how Illustrator works, you need to realize that we have a system where your object is created from points, anchor points, and lines between them. Let me show you. To make it more easier for you to understand, I will change my tool from rectangle tool to white arrow. This is A on a keyboard, direct selection over here, this tool. As you can see, after I change my tool, now this object looks a bit differently because we don't have a lot of different squares, a lot of tools around here. We have only 4 points. This one, this one, this one, and this one. And those are main shape creating points that are used to create this square. And between those points you can see lines, and that's how Illustrator works. We have anchor points and we have lines connecting them. Now, if I will change position of any of those points, I will change structure, I will change shape of this object. So I selected white arrow, I clicked with left mouse button on any anchor point that I want to, for example this one, click. Now you can see that this one is selected with the blue color, while others, they are white. It means that everything that is white is not selected, and the blue one is selected. Now, I'm just gonna click and hold with the left mouse button on the same point, and I can change its position. Releasing. Okay, that's how it works. You can move any other point. You can click at this point, click, now click and hold and move, that's all. Now again, Command Z to undo operation, click, click and hold again, moving, and that's how it works. As well as this one, you can select multiple points. For example, I want to skew this shape. I'm gonna click on this point. Now, I want to add to selection this point so I can move them together simultaneously. Now, I'm holding Shift on my keyboard, click and left mouse button to the second point that was not selected, but now it's gonna be selected. And as you can see, we have 2 points that are blue and 2 points that are white. Blue selected, white not selected. And now I'm just not holding anything, just left mouse button, click and hold, and I can move them all around the image. And that's how it works. Command Z to undo. And as well as holding Shift on your keyboard, you can just drag with your mouse. So over here, I have selected white arrow. I'm holding left mouse button. I'm starting from the white area, holding, and as you can see, I can create a selection, and every point that is gonna be inside this selection, within this selection, is going to be selected. Now, that's how it works. As you can see, I just dragged my selection, I captured 2 of those points, That's all what I need to do. Now I can move them. If you want to remove some points from selection, for example, let me show you. Sorry. For example, I'm gonna click and add additional point. We'll discuss this later. But for example, we have 3 points over here, but I want to move only corner ones. This one, that one, left and right. And I want to remove from selection this one. You need to hold Shift on your keyboard one more time, hold in Shift. Now click in with left mouse button to the point which you want to remove from selection, this one. And now as you can see, we have 2 selected points, left and right, while middle one is not selected. And now I can just move it. That's all. Now we have this built-in style shape and you can work with this. So that's how it works. That's how you can just shape with a simple tool, just dragging and dropping those anchor points with your tool. That's how it works. Now, when you see that you have a lot of different squares around this shape, it's because you selected either your shape creating tool, rectangle, or you selected black arrow, which is selection arrow. And those bigger squares, they are intended to change size of an object and rotate object. Let me show you. If I will hover on top of those big squares, white squares, they're not blue as you can see, they are fully white. If I'm gonna hover, you can see that my icon is changing. Now it's like double arrow, so I can resize my shape. So if you want to resize your shape, you need to select V on your keyboard. V is selection tool, black arrow, and now you can resize your object. If you want to resize it to some way, for example to horizontal way, you can just hover this left and right icons, and now you can drag it. The same for other side and for vertical side. That's all. Now, if you will hover this icon, you will change your shape of object in 2 axes. You can change it in vertical axis and horizontal axis. That's how it works. If you want to keep proportions for this one, you need to hold Shift on your keyboard. It's the same one as when you create your object. Shift is gonna allow you to change your size of your object proportionally, okay? Now, if you want to rotate your object, that's quite easy to do. Make sure that you selected V, your selection tool, and now hover outside of your object, not so far away, near those white squares. You can see that my icon is changed right now. Now I am holding left mouse button when I see this rotate icon, and now you can rotate your object. If you want to keep it within 45 degrees while you're rotating this object, please hold Shift on your keyboard. As you can see, Shift is quite common hotkey, so you can keep your proportions with the same constraint. You can rotate with the same angle and a lot of different stuff. You can add or remove some objects from selection with this Shift, so please make sure that you have working Shift on your keyboard. And now I'm gonna move it, and yes, that's all. And the main difference between black and white arrow is the fact that white arrow allows you to change shape of your object in a drastic way. You can just select any part, any anchor point, and move it. While with the black arrow, you can move your object overall, but you cannot select any specific point and change it so your shape will look differently. That's the main difference between those 2 tools. They serve for different purposes. Black one for rescaling and rotating, while white one is for changing appearance, style, and shape of your object, okay? When we know how to work with this one, let me show you another very important stuff about those tools. As you can see, other than those white squares, we have those rounded corners over here. They are available only in Illustrator since it's either 2014 or 2018, something like that version. So in version CS6 you will not find them, but in newest version you will see them. Those are created for you to round your object. Now you can just click and hold with your left mouse button and you can round your rectangle until it becomes like this. And you can do this with almost any type of shape. But if you want to round only one corner, you need to do that not with the black arrow, but with the white arrow. So click A on your keyboard. Now you can click on the place where you want to round this one. I want to round this corner. And now you can round this one. Okay, now we know almost everything about resizing and rotating our object. And let's talk about how to duplicate objects, how to change their color, and how to basically work with those objects. Let's start with the simple one, how to make a copy of your existing object. Over here I have my rectangle, I selected it with my black arrow, it's V on the keyboard, and now I want to make a copy, so this copy is gonna be with a different color, for example, and different size. I'm just holding Alt on my keyboard. While I'm holding Alt on my keyboard, you can see that my icon is changing from a single arrow to double arrow, black and white. And now I can hold left mouse button and move this from the left to right. Now you can see that I made a copy. This copy is totally separate object, so if I'm gonna change size of this one, it's not gonna affect any of other copies. That's you need to understand. And now I can just select this second object, click with the left mouse button, and I can change the color of this object. To change the color, we have a lot of different ways to do so, but the most simple way is to double click over here on the big colored square, double click. And now as you can see, we have color picker. This is the main section where you're gonna choose your color for the object, and it might look differently for a couple of reasons. The main reason is you selected any other checkbox rather than H. If I will select S, for example, as you can see, my view is changed. B, the same. R, G, B. So those are just representations of color systems within which are you working. First color system is HSB, hue, saturation and brightness. And second system is RGB, red, green and blue. Third system is HEX, hex color, which is represented by a lot of numbers and letters to recreate the same color. And the last system is CMYK. So, to make it easier for you and me to work, please make sure that you click H and do not change it within our course. You can change it, but overall it's gonna look a bit weird and it's gonna be more difficult for you to understand how to navigate within this area. So leave it H. Now, how to work with this one? With this vertical slider, you can select the hue of your color. For example, I'm gonna choose this blue hue. Now I have a square on the left side, which allows me to change brightness within vertical range from white to black, and saturation of this color on the horizontal axis. From the left to the right, I can change saturation. You can move this small circle around the square and you can select any color you want. If you want to change hue, that's not a problem, just move this vertical slider and you can change the hue. If you want to copy the same color that I have on my project, please just copy this code. This is hex code that you can give to any other person, and this person can just enter it in his software and it's gonna work. You can also give HSB number, RGB numbers, or CMYK numbers. It's gonna work in the same way. But mostly, and the most convenient way, is to use hex code. Now, we changed the color, and now I can just click OK. It's gonna allow me to save my changes, and as you can see, now we have two separate objects. First object is purple one, second one is blue one. I can change its size, I can do whatever I want. Now, let me show you the second thing. As you can see, we have a small border around this object. In Illustrator, it's called stroke, and you can change it to any color or totally remove it. Let me show you how to do that. You need to select your object, and this is a very important stuff. If you do not select your object, you can change anything over here. You can change color and whatever I want, but your object is not going to be changed. You need to select object at first or a couple of objects before you can modify its settings. That's logical because this section, as I mentioned before, named object settings. So you need to let the software know what is your object that you want to change. Because if you will not select anything over here, After you change those settings, it's gonna affect your next object. So if I will create new object, it's gonna be red. Okay, now I selected this object and now I want to increase stroke width. So as you can see, we have this section. It determines a stroke. I can increase width of the stroke or decrease it. You can type any number that you want. You can use any measurement system, pixels, millimeters, as I showed you earlier. You can use presets, so it's up to you. Now, if you want to change color for this one, it's the same as changing color for your fill, but it's located in the second square over here. Or you can double click on this hidden square, double square, and you'll be able to change color for your stroke. For example, let's make it the same blue color. To copy settings of the same color, you can use color picker. This one, click on the color that you want to copy, and now you can change, for example, brightness of it. Now we have this border. Okay. Now, for example, you want to use a pre-existing template for your fill and for your stroke. You can do that by going to this small icon over here for fill and over here for stroke. Open in fill. As you can see, we have some amount of templates. Those are basic templates. You can change them, you can remove them, you can create your templates with the plus icon to create new swatch. But for now, let's assume that we have this color and I want to have stroke with a darker color. So I'm gonna select stroke and I'm gonna make it darker, like this one. Okay, that's all what I need to do. As well as basic colors, you can apply patterns. We will discuss patterns later. For now, just skip them. As you can see, we have some, but we will skip them. I will make it back, Command Z to return to the basic position. And now we have this object. We change color of fill, color of stroke, and as well as changing color of stroke, you can see that we have this line under stroke. It means that you can click on this word. And after you click on this word, you can see that we have a lot of different options for the stroke. Let's go with the basic ones. So in terms of cap, we will not see any changes if we will change cap over here, because cap determines how your line is gonna look like. For example, I have this line is this tool, line segment tool, and if I will change cap from this one to rounded, as you can see, my caps are rounded, or they can be outside of the final point of my stroke or within the final point. That's all. That's why you need cap. For closed objects, you will not see any changes when you make any adjustments to cap. Now, in terms of corner, that's where you will see any changes. For example, I selected this object, stroke, and let me show you. Stroke. I can make round join or mirror join. As you can see, it's either rounded or rectangle one. If you want, you can have bevel join, it's up to you. You can decide which one better works for you. And as well, you can see that we have align stroke settings. This one is very important. Please make sure that you remember this, because in some situations, you want to have your stroke outside of your basic shape. If you want to do so, just click on this icon. It's gonna make stroke outside of your basic shape. So basically your rectangle is from here to here. But by default, it's creating stroke outside and inside. In some situations, you might want to have this stroke only inside of your basic shape, because in that way you can make sure that your settings of width and height are the same, and when you add stroke, as you can see, those settings are not changed, but basically your shape looks bigger. And in some situations, it's better to have stroke line by the center or by the inner side or outer side. It's up to you, but you need to make sure that you know how to change this, because this is very important stuff. Now, in terms of dashed line, as you can see, we have additional settings. That allow us to create a dash, which determines by dash and gap. distance between those dashes. You can change it. You can change position if it's gonna start from the corner or it's gonna wrap out the corner. So it's up to you to decide which one works for you. And as you can see, let me show you on the line. For example, I created line. As you can see, we have an option to create arrowhead. In some situations, you want to mention something or you want to point some detail on your project, and you might use arrowheads. In that way, you can assign arrowhead for the beginning of your shape and to the end of your shape. You can choose between a lot of arrows. If you want to scale them down, you can change position. You can change scale from 100 to 50, for example. It's gonna work. You can scale them together with your shape, or you can make them individually, so it's up to you. And as well, you can make sure that your arrow is gonna begin after the shape size or before, or it's gonna end by the end of shape size, this or this icon. And as you can see, we have one more. We have a profile section. It's the same as this one, so this and this are the same. And it's gonna allow you to change shape of your stroke. In some situations you want to have this, for example, like a grass or a beard or anything else, you can change it. You can have triangle shape, so it's up to you. And you can increase stroke size to make it more prominent. That's how it works. And as well, you can make it uniform to the standard one, and you can apply some brush preset. For example, you want to have a more grungy look, you can go to this one, and as you can see, we have this grungy style shape with a simple line. It's gonna work in some situations. Or we can have these beautiful arrows. So it's up to you how to use it. The last one. In some situations, you want to have your object with a lesser opacity. If you want to do so, just select your object, go to opacity and decrease its amount. In that way, you can see through the object. If you know what is blend mode and how to change it, how to work with them, just go to opacity, normal, and change blend mode. It's gonna affect how your top object is gonna be displayed together with the object that lies below your top object. We have a lot of blend modes. Some of them are created to have darker image, some are created to have lighter for contrast, for difference between those objects, and to grab a specific hue or saturation or color or luminosity from top object and apply it to the bottom object. So we have a lot of stuff over here. I'm not gonna go through those blend modes because this is like a pro tier of workflow, and for now it's too much for you, so we will skip this one. And along the course, I will use some of those blend modes. So mostly you will use multiply and screen. Everything else is quite rarely used, so just skip them for now. Now, as you can see, we've went through a lot of different stuff in this video, but that's not the end, because I mentioned that we have not only square, we have rectangles, we have ellipse tools, polygon tools, and etc. I am not gonna go through every tool in this video. It's gonna take a lot of time, but let me show you the most interesting one. First, ellipse. If you want to have, let me turn off stroke. I'm just gonna click over here and turn off color. If you want to create ellipse or an oval, you can do that. It's easy. V, select all objects and delete. That's all, we discussed this one. Now, if you want to have polygon tool, you can do that. And this one is quite interesting because while you're holding left mouse button, you can adjust amount of corners with your keyboard. When you're holding left mouse button, you need to hit up arrow or bottom arrow in order to change amount of those angles. For example, in that way you can create triangle. As well as you can change, for example, the same thing for a star tool, because at the beginning your star is gonna look like this, but if you want to increase the amount of angles, you can just hit with your keyboard up and down, that's all. But if you want to change shape of your star, you can hold Ctrl on your keyboard, so you can adjust the look of your star. When you're ready, just release your left mouse button. That's all. And over here you have the same options as for any other object. you can round corners, and you have additional tool that is available on newest version of Illustrator that allows you to increase amount of points. In previous versions, in 2022, 2023, you did not have this possibility to adjust amount of points with this simple controller, but now you have this option, so please use it. Now I can just delete this object, and that's all. As well as those objects, you can see that we have line, arc tool, spiral tool, and etc. Mostly you will use only a segment tool. This is this dash line that I showed you earlier, and that's how it works. To make sure that you can see this line, please make sure that you select its true color, because otherwise it's not gonna work. And that's it for this video, guys. I hope you found it useful, and if you did, please consider hitting like under this video, subscribing to the channel, hitting ring notification bell, and any other YouTube stuff that's gonna help us to improve quality of our videos, and in that way we'll make sure that we can continue creating this free online course for you guys. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye.